nervosa where the optic nerve leaves. You can see it leaving just there. It's a meningeal sleeve, the dura mater, around the optic nerve. So we'll look at these structures in detail in higher power in a second, just to orientate yourself. So then, around about here, you've got the vague remnants of the lens capsule. Then we've got the iris here, ciliary body, ciliary processes, and you might see a little bit of zonular fibers sitting off the ciliary processes. The lens has disappeared because you just get lost in fixation of all this. So if you're thinking about this, you should be thinking about anterior chamber, posterior chamber as part of the movement of the aqueous humour, and then the vitreous humour back here. And then also start thinking about how accommodation works and also how movement of the pupil works. The pupil's basically this space just here between the iris. So we look at these in higher power. Just find a nice spot. So basically we're expecting to see 5 layers. And as I said before, if you remember mid-term, that's fine, but really you've got 2 outer, or an outer and an inner epithelium. The outer epithelium is stratified squamous, the inner epithelium is just a single layer. It's not very dense. And then we've got an outer limiting membrane and an inner limiting membrane. The inner limiting membrane is Descemet's membrane, the outer one's Bowman's. Descemet's tends to be much thicker in animals compared to humans, and vice versa for Bowman's. And then the most of the structure here is substantia propria. And the difference or the advantage of this area of collagen is that it's very hydrated and organised. Because you all know that our corneas are clear. So this helps contribute to that. So move in a bit further, we'll just look at the stratified squamous. So again, we're seeing through all this. It's quite a clear membrane, obviously. If this wasn't clear, we wouldn't see through it. So there's the external epithelium, the outermost epithelium. You really can't see much of Bowman's membrane here. Then we're into the collagen, which is hydrated and organised collagen, the substantia propria. As we get towards the back, you can see a very obvious Descemet's membrane sitting just there, and then the wispy final inner limiting membrane, or what you call the posterior epithelium. So have a look through that. Then, once you understand the layers, what we're going to do is move. Oops, let's go mark this on this slide. We're going to move from here, which is cornea, down to here, which is sclera. So position that in the centre, move in. You can see it goes from being reasonably organised, what would be hydrated, and to a lot less organised, a lot less hydrated. So it becomes the white of the eye, the sclera. You can see there's lots of blood vessels involved, some pigment cells. Let's just move through all that and have a look. Then I'm just moving in and out of focus, in and out of magnification. So you have to bear with me. You can see what magnification we are at when you look at this zoom menu just here. But I'm in this area here now. This is all part of the ciliary body, ciliary muscle in all this region just here. And then goes into the ciliary processes here. But right at the end of the big ciliary process here, there's this wispy bit of here. That's a zonular fibre there and a zonular fibre there. They hold onto the lens capsule. We'll just move up a bit then. We'll probably see bits of lens capsule around here, but basically not much. You won't find anything really left with the lens. If you get lost, the navigation window is useful, just to show you where you are on the slide. So moving back in again, looking at the ciliary body around here. And then if we're thinking about it, we've got the posterior and anterior chambers for flow of aqueous humour. And the pectinate ligaments, basically just remnants just down here. And then we've got vascular plexus, which is absorbing the aqueous humour. So you see all this bits of smooth muscle on here, but then if you're particularly looking along the iris, which is here, remember this is all in 3D, so it goes right the way around. This is a very vascular structure. It's also got a lot of pigment in it. So the more pigment you've got, the more your eye is coloured. The less pigment, less coloured to blue. And then no pigment is albino. On the back end of this is inside the eye here. This dark line here is obviously pigment cells, melanocytes, because they're absorbing stray light. Light hitting the back of the iris is doing no good for vision. It's only complicating vision, so it absorbs it. So it's this pigment layer on the back end of the iris, which contributes to the iris colour, but also to absorbing stray light. Now, if you remember that, if you imagine this as like an iris on a camera or something that opens and shuts, as the pupil does, there's muscle, smooth muscle around the inner rim, which contraction will close the pupil. Then there's muscle radiating along the iris, and contraction will open the pupil. You've got mydriasis and myosis, mydriasis opening, myosis closing. So if we look at this again, and look at this in higher power, I can see lengths of muscle, smooth muscle along here, radially along the iris, which will open. And as we get more towards the centre, we start to see muscle around here, which is in cross-section. We're looking at higher power, which is the circular smooth muscle, which closes. Lots of pigment cells through here, so this eye would be reasonably well coloured, and lots of blood vessels. It's a very vascular structure. Okay, so that's the iris. Just checking I've not missed anything out. And then once you've seen that, we'll move further back. Now, if you look carefully here, we've got a couple of structures that are looking in greater power elsewhere, but we'll just look at here generally. I'm in an area here, you can see the navigation window, a little bit behind the iris ciliary body, just about here. There's a structure here which is the retina, and it seems to stop. And all we've got left is wispy bits and some pigment. And that really is the ora serrata, the junction between visible or seeing retina and non-seeing retina. So back here, if you imagine light coming through the eye, it wouldn't, wouldn't come down here, it would come down here and hit the main retina. So the difference here, we look in higher power, is that is real retina. This is blind and non-seeing retina. We still have the pigment cells, but none of the rods and cones. That's the ora serrata. We'll look at this in a little bit more detail a little further along, because we'll see it a little bit better. So now if I'm looking here, I can see sclera, choroid, the gap here is artifactual, and then retina. Higher power again, sclera, choroid. Remember, choroid is very vascular, lots of blood vessels and lots of red cells in here. It's vascular support, the nerves as well. Lots of pigment cells, all sitting in here. And then we get to the retina itself. Now, I'm looking at my notes, and then the structure in the actual chapter 5. Look at that diagram. I'll just find out what diagram number it is. Diagram is 5 to 6. And it's basically the structure of the retinas there pretty well. What we've got here, so look at that diagram, look at this picture as you're doing it, and I've gone as high power as I can get on the retina. What I can see here is an outer pigment layer. That's all part of the retina. And then these things here is the outer nuclear, or external nuclear layer. Then the rods and cones. The wispy stuff in here is the processes of the rods and cones. It's the attach. And then we've got the outer plexiform layer and the inner nuclear layer. This is the bipolar cells, the amacrine cells, and the horizontal cells. All do fine-tuning. You're not expected to be able to tell the difference between them. They're all sitting there. Then we've got the inner plexiform layer, and then we can see these big cells here. There's one there, there's several of them. And their process is running up here to form the optic nerve. So light coming through here, come through the lens, and being refracted onto this surface, go through all of this before it hit the rods and cones. Excess light is absorbed and except for this pedal lucidum area, where it will be reflected back in night-seeing animals. And then firing of these cells would then be fine-tuned by these cells, and then finally make an impulse in the ganglion cell, and its processes form the optic nerve. So we follow this around. Now, I'll just go slightly high power. If you look at the top layer here, as we get closer and closer to the optic disc, what you will see is that the layer on top becomes thicker and thicker. So there's the ganglion cells there. You see this thickening here, the processes, as we get closer to the optic disc, it becomes thicker. You can see the big, obviously, ganglion cells. Just dragging it around, it's thicker again. So the time we get to basically here, which is the optic disc, that's the area curvosa, optic disc coming through, which is all the optic nerve. You can see that there's separation of the retina, which is artifactual, but there's our retina, rods and cones, outer nuclear, inner nuclear. There's the ganglion cell layer, and then just lots and lots of processes of the axons. So there's the cumulative effect of all these axons forming the optic disc. Look at that picture in your chapter 5, and then look at the slide itself. You should be able to see all that. Okay, that's the first slide. We'll leave you to it for a few